I need a Winn-Dixie grocery bag full of money right now to the VIP section.
It was in the years 1777 to 1778 that General Washington and about 6,000 men wintered at Valley Forge, about 20 miles from Philadelphia. General Washington and his men suffered miserably in the freezing weather and poor conditions. Washington picked this place because it proved a good place for defense. It was well drained but close to a water supply. It was surrounded by heavy woods for fuel and building material. Although it was not a severe winter, the troops did not have enough food or supplies, including warm clothes and shoes. They lived in little huts and slept on straw for beds. There was food, but often it was sold to others for money. Sometimes Washington soldiers were reduced to boiling their shoes and eating them. Many men died. About 2,500 out of 10,000 men died of starvation, malnutrition, or freezing temperatures. While Washington's men suffered, General Howe's men were living comfortably with plenty of food to eat. This is because they had more money to pay for supplies. After Washington brought a man named Nathaniel Greene to take over as quartermaster, things got better. Supplies began to come in again. The men had food and clothing again. And it was a difficult period of war for the Patriots. During the winter of 1778, George Washington brought in a man to Valley Forge, named Friedrich Wilhelm von Steuben, to help the American troops. He was Prussian general from Germany. He took charge of organizing and training the troops. He taught the Patriots things like how to set up camp, how to handle guns, how to march, and how to command troops. It helped to give the American troops more confidence, even though Washington lost many men during the terrible winter of 1777 to 1778. By the spring, his troops had regained their spirit and were ready to fight.
Yep, 3-6 Mafia, featuring Project Pat, Young B, let's go!
George Washington was born on February 22, 1732 in Westmoreland County, Virginia. George Washington had a father named Augustine Washington and a mother named Mary Bell Washington. He grew up in a privileged family on a large tobacco plantation. This plantation was near the Potomac River. When he was 6 years old, he moved to a farm called Ferry Farm because Mr. Washington owned the ferry that crossed the river to Fredericksburg. George Washington's father died when he was only 11 years old. Although he had no formal education, he read books on geography, military history, agriculture, and deportment, and composition. In his early years, George Washington was a surveyor of land and a map maker. As a young man, George Washington joined the Virginia militia. After many battles, Washington became a colonel and leader of the Virginia militia. In 1758, George Washington was elected to the Virginia government. At this time, the British were heavily taxing the colonists to pay for war expenses. The colonists felt this unfair and revolted. In 1775, George Washington was chosen as the commander-in-chief of the colonial army. In 1776, the colonists declared independence. After many bloody battles, and the British were defeated in 1981. In 1789, George Washington was elected the first president of the United States of America. who was also elected again in 1792. John Adams was his vice president. The first inauguration took place in New York City, the first capital. Washington's second inauguration took place in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the next capital. During his presidency, the Bill of Rights was adopted in 1791. The Bill of Rights guarantees the rights of American people. George Washington died on December 14, 1799, at his home, Mount Vernon, in Fairfax County, Virginia.
In 1760, the British government passed a series of laws to increase its control over the colonies. At the time, the colonies were basically governing themselves. They strongly resisted the new laws, and especially tax laws. The disobedience of the American colonies angered the British government. In 1775, Britain declared Massachusetts to be in rebellion. The British government decided to send their troops from Boston to take quick action against the rebels. At dawn on April 19, 1775, they marched into Lexington. The British Major John Pickard and his 6 light infantry companies faced about 70 colonial Minutemen. The commander of the British troops ordered the colonists to put down their guns. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, the shot rang out. No one knew who did it. The British opened fire. 8 colonists were killed. These were the first lives lost in the war. The British marched from Lexington on the Concord. This time the Minutemen were ready. At Concord's North Bridge, volunteers had arrived to come and help. They surrounded the village town. Here at the North Bridge is where the colonists fired. The shot heard around the world. The British were under fire, so they retreated. They fought all the way until they got back to Boston. Colonists hid near stone walls and trees along the road. Near sunset, the tired troops finally reached Boston. That night, colonists were encircling Boston. The colonists were camping just outside of Boston. The bond between Great Britain and the 13 colonies was falling apart.
The American colonists were unprepared for the war. They lacked a central government, an army, and a navy. Delegates from the colonies came together to form the Continental Congress. The Continental Congress took the duties of trying to form an army and a navy. They looked to George Washington, a wealthy landowner from Virginia who had once been a commander in the army.